Hello, welcome to Eddie V Live. I'm your host, Eddie V. It's good to be back with you on this Tuesday. Lots to get into. I'm going to try to marathon it and get done with this elite human capital so we can move on with our lives. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. I'm getting a little tired of it. It's like kind of messing with my head a little bit. I'm like reading too much about money stuff. It feels weird. Like today, it was crazy. I was looking at Kick. So I'll relate it to all this money stuff. I'll explain it. I was looking at Kick, the streaming platform, because Clav was on it. Clav is on it, and he's being interviewed by Sean Hannity. And I'm just like, and Sean Hannity mentions how much money Clav is making, not a specific, like just saying he's a multimillionaire. I was like, how is he making that much money? And looking at how much people on Kick make and how they make the money. Where was I going with this? I don't even remember where I was going. It's just crazy. I'm thinking too much about money, too much money stuff in this world. If you have an idea for streaming, you should go on Kick and do it because it is lucrative. I was looking at that as crazy. It's like really to make a lot of money in this world, you just need like 500 people that care about what you're doing and are willing to pay you not even a large amount per month or per year. It's really strange. I just thinking how strange money is in the economy. And I was thinking I should really get into the topic, but last thing, I was thinking about how, there's a lot of people that say in the US today, it's like, it's so easy to make money. And I was like, always like, I don't know, is it? But there's like this whole underground, it's not even underground, it's like above ground, not even just one thing, a bunch of different things where you can make money in ways that most people don't think. Most people are like, you have to be like in the medical profession or like you have to be in the banking system or something to make money. But there's all this stuff that people don't think about. I guess today it's probably streaming, which honestly, I don't know how many people make money streaming, but it was just crazy to me. Anyway, we're going to get into it. Hopefully this is the last Elite Human Capital. Should be a good one. We've got a lot of notes here, so I'm gonna get chugging away. No announcements, I don't think. So here we go. So he starts getting, and I mentioned this before, he gets into the age brackets of if you're at this age, what he recommends you do in terms of career, finances, and stuff. So we're gonna start at the under 18 bracket. I am obviously not under 18. I am a old man, but if you are under 18 or right around that age, listen up because I do think he has some great advice. First, I'm going to get into it. This is not what he says. I think he is Catholic or Christian, just the way he talks about stuff. But he doesn't mention this. He has a specific goal of preparing people to make a difference politically and in society. Obviously, I'm Catholic and I want people to, most of all, be saints and through their vocation, hopefully. So, and then thirdly or secondarily, focus on helping society in that way. But first I want to talk about vocations. And this is not talked about enough in the church and in families, Catholic families, is if you're under 18, you need to start thinking about your vocation. Your parents are probably not going to tell you to do this because they just weren't raised this way. I don't know when it stopped or started. We could probably get into that at another date. But they're not going to tell you need to start thinking about your vocation. And some people might obviously be like the priesthood, religious life. And that's like, yes, that's true. You need to start thinking about that as soon as possible and not like pressure, but it's like the sooner you discern it, like actually sit down and think about it and pray about it, the better for your life because your vocation is what God has chosen for you. So it's what God wants for you. So you should enter into it to the best of your ability in accordance with God's will. It'll make you happier. You'll be a happier person for it. So I say start discerning it. If your parents aren't even telling you to do this, start discerning when you're like 12, 13. Not like pressure. You don't have to be pressure. Just thinking like, would I want to be a priest? Would I want to be a sister? Pray about it. Ask God. See how you feel. See what kind of peace or fear comes up when you think about these different vocations. And so that's not controversial. It's just not talked about enough. The earlier you can start discerning that, the better. So when you turn 18, which is the society's norm for adulthood, when you turn 18, you can be like, boom, I'm heading to the seminary, I'm heading to this convent, etc. You're ready for it to enter into what God is calling you to. The thing that a lot of people, even in the church, they won't talk about that usually, but they won't talk about also discerning marriage before you're 18. I think this is important too. As you're discerning at 13, 14, should I be a priest? Should I be religious? Start discerning a marriage too. Because if you're not going to be those things, most people will be called to marriage. That will be the vocation for most people. And it is a vocation. I do want to do an episode about that, how marriage is a vocation. It is important. It is specific. It calls you out in a certain way. Most people only think of priesthood and religious life. It's like it's taking you out of the world and putting you somewhere. Marriage does that too, in a lesser degree, but it does do that. We need to treat it like a vocation. So the biggest thing I think you need to think about under 18. He doesn't talk about that. I'm sure he would if he was going to be more explicitly religious, but he's not trying to do that. But I want to mention that because I see it too often that parents are not having this conversation with their kids and they're just like assuming because they're Catholic that they'll think about this stuff, or Christian in general, they'll think about marriage in general without specifically sitting down and talking to them about it. Anyway, so that's that. That's from me. That's not from the text we're looking at here. So next he's going to talk about, if you want to have a successful life, a meaningful life, a life that will have societal impact. I would say political impact is probably what he's looking at, but also just like life in general. And he's going to talk about fatherhood and family later too. But the next thing he's going to talk about is GPA, AP classes, and SAT, ACT. These are all things like have to do with high school. The grades before aren't really that important, honestly, but you should still do them well. But GPA is going to be important. AP classes are important, and SAT, ACT, and obviously this is directed towards college. He's going to be a huge proponent of college. I do think if you want to be one of these, usually what you're going to, if you want to be one of these, very put together people, successful people, have power, have sway in society, in your community, you're going to usually be a college degree getter. And obviously we're speaking to the men. For women, if you discern religious life or marriage, it's like, don't go into debt going to college. That just seems ridiculous to me. And honestly, if you join a religious order and they need you to get a degree, they might just like pay for it. So you could really avoid debt. And it is interesting. I will mention with the religious orders, I'm getting off track again. But a lot of them will actually tell you that you need to get rid of your debt before you enter into religious life. So things to think about there. But all this is geared towards, not that you can't have an impact, can't be a successful person without college, but usually you're going to be a college goer if you're going to be one of these movers and shakers. So that's that. Study for those, do the classes, get A's, easy money. It shouldn't be that hard if you're focused. He says, be involved, stay busy. I put that actually, stay busy. And in high school, I don't know how, it is a little important, I think. I don't know how important. Playing sports, I think, is good for discipline, but I don't think you should take it too seriously. People take it way too seriously in high school. I think the political stuff can be really cool, like a Model UN, just to help you, or speech and debate, just to give you confidence in front of people. Looking back to high school, how many people had difficulty speaking in front of a crowd is just very interesting. I don't know, is that a regular human thing or is that like our society? I don't know. I always had less trouble with it, but I did have to go through a period of just like forcing myself to like not care what people thought. So that stuff could be good. But yeah, I definitely recommend staying busy, because the alternative is just wasting away, partying, stuff like that, if you're not careful. And that stuff, it's not fun. It's not fun. You can get with the propaganda from movies and different things. It's not fun. It's not a good time. You will burn out. You will not enjoy it if you're honest with yourself. I just don't think there's any way around it. So stay busy with good things. You want to be a well-rounded person. You want to build your character before you're 18. And then talks about like thinking about, and I love this, like thinking about like a direction, a goal. So we're just going to assume married life here. We're going to priesthood, religious, very specific. We're not talking about that. But if you want to be elite human capital, you're going to want to go to a good college usually. for young men, if you can, and he says this, and I'm not really sure the details, but I'll trust him on this. He says going to an Ivy League school and actually getting a lot of debt is actually worth it. He says only for those schools, because the prestige of those schools, you can basically get a plethora of high paying jobs. You can pay off that debt very quickly. He said 5 years. I'm not sure on the numbers. I tend to believe him because all these high powered people that are making all the decisions, 75% of them are Ivy League. Whether you think they're smart or not, they got to be a little bit smart to have gone to these schools. So, start thinking about the schools, Ivy League, great. And then he says, and this is super smart, and I see a lot of people messing this up. He says, if you don't get into an Ivy League, do not go out of state for some crazy expensive private school, or don't go out of state. Especially, this is the dumbest thing, going out of state to a state school. You're going to be paying out of state tuition for something that is not better than your in-state state school, and their tuition is going to be way cheaper for an in-state person. That is silly. No one should be doing that. Absolutely no one should be doing that. You are just going to build up debt for no reason. And this is the I did this right on accident. I didn't even think of this. I just didn't want to go far away from my hometown. But yeah, if you don't get the Ivy League school, you want to go to college, go to the state school, get the good scholarships. I basically had a full ride, and I was not, I wasn't the top. I was a good student, but I wasn't the top of the class or anything. So definitely do that. Do not go to these crazy private schools, get out of state tuition, all this stuff. It's not worth it. I think that's great advice. And he says with the debt, he says it's okay to take a little debt. Ivy League school is like take on a ton of debt. I don't know if it sounds interesting. He might have a point there. Go at your own risk. But he says at the state school, you should be getting scholarships, and any debt, he says, you should be able to pay off. So don't worry too much about it. That's really contrary to how I think of it. I have thought of it in the past. This guy's really kind of making me think about different things. I think he has a point, especially if you're focused, and we're going to talk about that, because it's not about going to college and getting like some pointless degree. That is the worst case situation. You go to college, you get a pointless degree, and you have a bunch of debt. Don't do it. But if you're starting to think about this at 13, 14, you're not going to have a pointless degree. He talks about the major, and this kind of gets with the pointless degree. He specifically talks about law. He talks about you want to get into law. He's talking about being elite human capital. So this is very specific. If you have some passion, some other thing, engineering, I don't even know what degrees there are. You want to be a doctor, stuff like that. Yes, go to college. You don't have to do law. But if you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer, you're not going to really have that political savvy, that political prowess that someone with a law degree has. So he recommends law. He recommends something in politics. He recommends entrepreneurship, which I'm really enjoying from him. I think it's really cool. Owning a business, creating a business, buying a business. You think these are really great things to study in college. Again, I'm usually on the side of you don't really need to go to school to learn how to run a business, but he still recommends it. And maybe I'll explain a little more later. He says banking and finance, and he does this in order of what he prefers people do. Banking and finance, and then last is the trades. So if you don't want to go to college, he says that trades are a really good option. You're not going to have that political prowess necessarily, but you can have a really great career building things, doing great things for society, and still, making a significant amount of money. So those are the ones. Law degree is definitely the one that he pushes the most. And like, as I'm seeing it more and more, it's like, yeah, that is the degree. You can do a lot of things with a law degree. It is 3 extra years of school, so you have to factor that in. But he was talking about like the minimum salary for a new lawyer at a firm is like $200,000. So if you're smart, you could pay off debt. I think the problem most people is like they get a high paying job like that after college, and they immediately start like living that lifestyle instead of paying off their debt. And it might be a miserable job. I've heard, some lawyers love it. Some lawyers are just gassed. They're just burnt out. So if you're going to do that, you got to really know you want to do it. Start thinking about that early. This is all stuff. This is great stuff, though. All things you need to think about before you're 18. It's almost like the system, like public school, it's like designed to not help you think about this, and like families are not doing this. So if you're a parent, like talk about this with your kids, like explicitly, not like very vague. Just get really specific with it. So that's before college. I'm zooming through this because a lot of this stuff I think you guys can think for yourselves. I'll try to highlight kind of the hot takes. So in college, he talks about college is a really big part of it is networking. And it's kind of funny, networking and the degree. So the slip of paper that says that you can do this, that you know this, and the networking. Most of the smart people are going to go to college. In theory, a lot of intelligent people, a lot of people that are going to be high-powered people in society, you can make those friends, those networking. Networking just helps you, team up with people, collaborate to do great things. So college can help you with that. Again, don't party, don't be doing that stuff. It's not even that fun. Making a difference in society, a positive difference, having a family, having people that love you is going to bring you way more happiness than partying for a little bit in college. Guaranteed. I'll stop there. Minimize debt. He says you should get a part-time job. I think this is a great way to stay busy, learn, work ethic, make your own money, and also start paying off that debt early. He talks about like eating out and going to bars and stuff. He's like, don't do it, but if you're going to do it, use your part-time job. Don't use your debt to pay for that. Just very practical advice. He recommends, this is more for the political heads, people that want to get involved in politics, joining those college organizations, TPUSA, Young Republicans, great way to network as well. And then this is an interesting thing, which ties into kind of career change stuff. If you're in the 30 over, we'll talk about that. But he says in college, it's really important to take advantage of your summers, which I agree with that. And he says a great way you can do that is by getting involved in a campaign for political purposes. But he just says summer sales in general. So just learning how to speak to people and learning how to sell a product is going to be very valuable. I tend to agree with that. If you're already good at talking to people, maybe do something else. But I think it's good, valuable. We live in an economy that is really based on selling stuff, so it can't hurt you. That's in college. So college, keep your head down. I even think, if you want to get into good graduate schools, that GPA is still important. But honestly, if you're not planning on doing that, the GPA, you don't need to straight A it. Networking, doing your thing, keeping your head down, great for college. Talks about young professionals. So this is going to be under 30, the under 30s. He says if you are 25 or older and not on the way to six figures, you need to have a career change. So that's going to sound radical. And, for me, it's depending on what you're trying to do in life. This is elite human capital, so this is what he's saying. And so he talks about the different career changes that are possible. But first, why career change? And so there's a lot of, I don't know if it's fear mongering or it's true. A lot of people are talking about how you need like at least $100,000 a year to support a family and a wife. That might be true. That might not be true. I haven't crunched the numbers. When I was younger, I was really thinking that was not the number. So we'll see. I am obviously not married, do not have kids. But I'm like thinking about it, like immigrants and stuff. Like we have a lot of Mexicans here, and maybe a lot of them are making over 100K. I don't know, but they have a lot of kids. They have wives. So I think this might be a little exaggerated, but I understand where he's coming from for sure. But he says the reason you want to be on the way to six figures at 25 is for supporting wife and family, for saving 20% of your income. I'm assuming he means for retirement. So you know how I feel about that. Or if you don't, I'm against retirement. I understand people saving up money, but I'm against like saving up all your money so you can like sit on it when you're 60 or 70. I have a different retirement plan than that. That's not working yet. So maybe I'm on the wrong there. And then he says, so you can buy a decent house in a decent place. Okay, fair. The housing market's crazy. It's been crazy for a long time. So fair. And then the ability to take a financial hit. So to be comfortable enough that if something happens to you, your family or your business or your job, you are okay. I think for me, it's a little bit of fear mongering, but I understand where he's coming from again. But, take it as it is. And he says, if you're on the right path, if you're 25 or older and you're on your way to the six figures, you're okay to stick it out. So these are the career change options. And I think these are the most interesting. If you're in a dead end, these are some options for you. Did I skip a page here? No. So these are the career change options. If you're 25 or older, you're not on the way to six figures. He says a sales pivot, so a sales job. He says car sales is the best thing you could do. It's an easy access point and you can learn it quick and make a lot of money. I didn't know that, but um yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't looked into it a lot, but people do buy cars and there's people that sell them. So if you need something, do that. He says in mortgage, I don't know a lot about that, so take that how you will. Financial advising, software sales, real estate, door-to-door direct sales. So those are all sales things. I've actually met people that have transitioned later in their life to sales for the money. So it is a thing that happens. I didn't know cars were a big thing, but this is what he's saying, and this guy knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. So if you are stuck, maybe look into sales. Another thing is the entrepreneurship pivot. This is the one I'm most interested in. I've been reading a lot about this. He talks about this website, bizbuysell.com. You can buy businesses in your area or wherever you want. The financing is a little interesting. I'd have to read more about that before I get into it, but he swears by it. He says to look for a small business under $1 million in revenue to buy. He's mentioned seller finance for part of it from a retiring person is the ideal. So someone's retiring, they have this business, they want to get out of it, they want to sell it. You take it over from them, they train you a little bit, and they also partially finance it with you. That's what he says the ideal is. That sounds really interesting to me because I think it would be really cool to own my own business. So, and you should look at the website if you're interested. It's bizbuysell.com. It's really like Zillow or something, but for businesses. You can go on it today and look. And he even has his own story about in like 60 days when he was in his 20s. He like understood that the biz buy sell, read a book, and after 60 days he had closed on the sale of a business. So it's possible. All these things are related to the business. I'm just going to say the catchphrases probably. He says a valuation of 2 to 4 times the SDE. I forgot what that stands for. So sorry about that. You can look it up. He says to clean house immediately if you buy a business. You know, you don't want any people that are going to bring the business down as you as the owner, if you are the owner. He says hire ambitious young people. I think that seems obvious. Modernize the business. If you have, a boomer, an older person, they might be still doing stuff from 30, 20 years ago. So modernize it, your payroll, different things like that. It says pay yourself. Don't be one of these guys that owns a business, works super hard and doesn't pay himself. And he says, I don't know why I put this. I put book read. Oh, read the book, read some books about small business stuff. He has a list. If you want it, reach out. I can give it to you. And I can give you the PDF too, because I have it. And then the other thing he mentioned, so we had sales, entrepreneurship, and then the third thing is career change. This one seems the most difficult to me. But he says basically you can basically start to slowly, quietly alter your LinkedIn or your resume, kind of try different educational routes, certifications, stuff like that, and slowly just move. And he says when you're applying, it's going to be a volume thing. You're just going to have to apply to a bunch of places and see what lands, while changing your resume. And then he says, key thing here, which I think is just common sense, do not quit a career or a job before you have an offer from another career job. That just seems obvious. So don't do that. So that's the young professional age. So now we're getting to 30 or older. I'm 31, so this is the one that I'm most interested in. So we're at 30 or older. He says if you're not wealthy, not married, or have no clear career trajectory, that is not good, and you need to face that. I'm just like, maybe I have the career trajectory. I don't know. But you need to face the reality of that. And I think he's right to a certain extent. Those things aren't everything. If you're a Catholic, we believe in eternal life. That's what you should be facing. That's what you should be owning up to. But it also is like you need to be responsible in this life. You need to make sure, you are doing something. You have a trajectory, which should be holiness, but also should be taking care of your family, helping your community, stuff like that. Contributing to society is good too. So he says, if you're 30 or over, you need to move right now. You need to stop talking about stuff. You need to start doing things. So do it now. Do something. And he even has like a checklist. You should make your own checklist. Week 1, what am I going to do? Week 2, what am I going to do? I think that's really powerful. He also says, if you're 30 or older and you're in a bad place, you need to be making sure you tell the younger guys like, hey, you need to like start thinking about this stuff, which is basically what I'm doing right now. So hopefully it's helping you. He says the only additional education you'd be looking at if you're 30 or older and in this situation where you don't have anything going on is law school. And he says, obviously, you need to be honest with yourself if you have the determination or the intelligence to do law school. Law school is always beneficial, he says. So, and based on what you can do with it in this society, it's like, it makes sense. He says, again, emergency, you need to, sales is a great thing to make money right away. Buying a business, but you need to do it right now. You need to do it right. A focused trade, he says in about 3 years, if you focus on an accelerated program with a trade, you could have a pretty solid trajectory in 3 years for trades. So it's not over yet, but it's not about it's being over. It's like, it's not over, but you need to move now. That's his big thing for 30 and over people. And family formation, if you're not married, and we'll talk about more of the family stuff he talks about. He's saying if you don't have a family, you need to start quickly. This is for young men. So young men have a little leeway because, our ability to make children, men in general to make children, extends obviously into the far future. As for women, it does not. Women start to become fertile, able to bear children like in their early teens. And then they start to struggle in their late 20s, early 30s. So the window for women and the window for men are really different. But even for men, it's like you don't want to be 60 years old and have 3 children under the age of 5. It's just not good math. So he says you need to start looking for a wife, and we'll talk about that stuff. And I agree with him on that. Family in general is what gives life a lot of meaning, a lot of purpose, and just a lot of joy in general, especially if your vocation is marriage. That's what you're going to want to be looking at. You want to enter into that. Obviously, you don't need a family to get into heaven. And even St. Paul talks about this. It's better to stay single. So if you have discerned that, definitely do that for sure. But if you do want a family, it's like you got to start thinking about this stuff now. But don't worry about it. I mean, I like to tell people a lot if they're older and single is Saint Louis Martin and Saint Zélie. St. Louis was 35, and it didn't even seem like he was trying to get married. Like he was just chilling bachelor life. He was enjoying it. So it's not a set rule. It's just what this guy's talking about, and he has some points. And St. Zélie was 8 or 28 when they met, so he's 7 years older. And their saint couple, had 9 children, 5 of them that made it to adulthood. So St. Zélie is 28. She had 9 children. So, but some of them died in childbirth. So you got to be thinking about that too. Anyway, kind of a side tangent. So family formation, I'm going to flip my notes here. And so one thing he's going to talk about a lot is the politics side of this if you're over 30 and just in general. So I'll comb through that. I don't think there's a lot of people trying to run for office, but I do want more people, especially if they share my views, to get more politically involved. We just voted today for the Arizona primary. So I do want people to be politically involved. So he says one thing that's unlocked for people that are 30 and over that is not necessarily unlocked for people that are younger is running for office. So he says if you aren't involved already, you should be involved before starting in college. But if you're not involved already, you need to get involved right now with your county party, your Republican Party. If you're right wing, obviously. If you're left wing, just don't do anything. You're fine. Don't get involved in politics. Don't do it. But if you're Republican, get involved in the county Republican Party, go to meetings, get involved in your local councils, different things like that, city, county boards, go to the meetings, city council, county commission stuff. Start going to those things, meet people, connect. He says so if you're over 30, you need to be doing that. Before you're 30, still be doing that. But he's saying if you're going to do that, you need to have your budget under control, no high interest debt. So if you have a mortgage, okay. But if you have credit card debt, get that down first. Have an emergency fund, have a solid career you're sitting on, and ideally a supportive wife. You don't need the wife, obviously, but if you're thinking about getting into these offices, it's funny. Like having a wife just looks good for you. And I think that's just kind of obvious at this point. Yeah, so just get involved in those things. He's talking about, there's a lot of just older people that do this stuff. So if you're a young guy, you're clean cut, you're well put together, you have a good career, you're gonna slide in there. They're gonna love you, and they're gonna put you into some positions immediately. So you just got to be consistent with that. I'm not gonna get too much into that, but look into that. You can just Google, your local county Republican party and go to the meetings. It's like usually they're monthly. And the last thing not the last thing, close to the last thing we're going to talk about is family formation. So he recommends marrying young, obviously. So we're out of the 30 thing. We're out of the 30s. We're just talking in general. He says marry young. He says one of the most important things you'll do is choose the right wife. And these are his. I agree with some of them. These are his criteria for choosing a supportive wife. He says she should be part of a traditional faith. There's a lot of reasons for this. I'm not going to explain it. I mean, obviously, is that this will incline her to have traditional morals, first of all. So be thinking about that. A desire for children, and you need her to say explicitly that she has a desire for children and for a lot of children. She is open to life if you're a Christian or Catholic. Modern women, even Catholics and Christians, they very career oriented. They have drank the Kool-Aid of the modern culture. So you really need to get explicit about this. And if she's not about it, you need to be willing to walk away, even if she's like really pretty or really pleasant to be around, because this will be a huge problem in your relationship. I'm guaranteeing you it. So traditional faith, that was all part of that. Desire for children, domestic. If you're going to be working this hard, you need to have a wife that is going to actually do the wifely things, not someone who's also working, 40 to 8 hours a week and your house and your kids are in shambles. Someone domestic, are they going to cook? Are they going to clean? Are they going to take care of you? Are they going to be supportive of you? All these things you need to know. Oh, that's the next point. Supports her husband. And it's cool. He talked about it even. It's like any person that is of any seriousness about living a good Christian life needs to have a wife that understands that the man is the head of the household and that she is supporting the mission of the husband. That is going to be a mess. And you see it all the time. You see people get divorced, Christian, Catholic, whatever, when they have two different missions and the wife is not supporting the husband, she's supporting herself and the kids get left behind. This is real. Family is not a democracy. It is a monarchy. It is a headship. It is a patriarchy. This is the only way it can work. I beg someone to show me how it could not work or something else could work. And this is interesting. He actually says the politics of the woman are not super important. The politics are not super important. He says if they're like a crazy, leftist, partisan, they're like laughing when Charlie Kirk gets murdered, like that. Yeah, you obviously need to stay away from that. But if they're like, he talks about how most women in America are slightly left leaning, and that's just true. Women, they tend towards we want the free stuff, we want to do whatever we want, we don't want responsibility, so they're gonna slightly skew left most of the time. So he says if you are good to her, you are firm with her, she enjoys being around you, she will come to the light, she will come to the right. I don't know how true that is. I have known women that I've dated or women that I was friends with that did come right eventually. And they gave me some kudos for that because I was just very firm with them about how dumb their position was. But yeah, tread with caution on that. But he seems to think it's not as important. So those are the things you need. And he says to look out for career obsession. I kind of talked about that. Yes. If the woman you're thinking about dating or marrying is career obsessed, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. We need the women in the home. There's just no other way around it. If she wants to be a doctor or a lawyer, let her be single her whole life and do that. But a wife is a specific vocation. You don't want career stuff. Any addictions, maybe obviously in the past or in the present, need to be wary of. Family trouble. So if she doesn't have a good relationship with her family might be the problem. That's my opinion. That's not his, but her family might be the problem, but you need to look at that. Is her family not associating with her? Also, I would say a huge thing, which is not like a, absolute no-go, but if she comes from a divorced family, it's almost guaranteed she's gonna have some problems. And it doesn't mean you can't work through them and stuff, but you just need to be conscious of that because divorce is very jarring for children. It is very disruptive. So they probably will have some stuff they need to work through. Some people that aren't even from divorced families have to work through stuff. But if they're from a divorced family, it's probably going to be something that you're going to have to work through. So be on the lookout for that. And then if they have heavy social media, this has to do with hypergamy. This has to do with, what women usually do in the history of mankind is they try to get attention from men. Heavy social media, it's not for the thousands of reasons she says it's for. It's for, brain rot, and it's for getting men's attentions, usually 99.9% of the time. So just be wary of that. Hopefully you know that already. Get your woman off social media. For real, for real. And then children, we talked about it already, the reality of fertility for women. They need to if they want children, they need to be getting married young. My friend was telling me, and she's a woman, she was telling me that I think when you're 30 or 31 already, it's considered a geriatric pregnancy because the ability to get pregnant after 30 and the danger of the pregnancy after 30 are real things. I know there's a lot of people that do have kids after that, but it gets more difficult and you have to be aware of that. Delivery, all these things. He talks about the important, like all the things you're doing are really going to be for God, for what is right and just, but also for your family. So if you don't have the family and you're doing all these other things right, it's all really kind of pointless. If you're 50 years old and you have no children, but you have like $6 million in the bank, what does it really mean, right? 50, 60 years old, no kids. It's a sad predicament for sure. This is an interesting point. I really enjoyed this because I'm always having to tell women like kids are not expensive. And I don't think they are, but they do cost money in a way. But he talks about people over exaggerate this because the price per child goes down as you have more children. The first child is the biggest and heaviest cost. There's just a lot of things you have to purchase and know about with the first child. But after that, it gets significantly cheaper. And one simple way to understand is like hand-me-downs, right? You buy this is very simplistic, but you buy a stroller for the first child, a little pricey. Maybe you get it from a relative. Use the same stroller for all your kids. You don't have to keep buying new strollers. So there's an initial cost and the cost per kid goes down. And they're also, and he doesn't argue this, but I'd argue they're going to pay you back when they're older and they're successful if you raise them right. They're going to pay you back in spades. Like it's not even close. It's interesting. In old Jewish understanding, traditional understanding is like kids are wealth. They're actually going to make you money. And you shouldn't think of kids like that, but like the reality is that they're going to provide value to you, not just because, they're your seed, they're the fruit of you. They're your children and you love them, but they're actually going to give a financial benefit to you later on if you treat them well. He talks about in big families, the children are different than, only childs or kids that are in families that are really small. I mean, I think you could have good kids in small families and big families, just depending on how you raise them and their nature and stuff. But I do think there is a benefit to a larger family where the kids have to kind of interact with each other and they have to be like cooperative with each other. I've seen bad ways of this and I've seen good. So I don't know if it necessarily means you have a big family, it's going to work out that way, but it is something to think about. I put a sad face for childless old age. We already talked about that. And he talks about building wealth for family and not consumption. I think that's great. Absolutely. You're developing wealth so you can provide for them. You can give back to the community. You can fight for what's good and right and just. You're not just doing it so you can have bigger and bigger houses, nicer and nicer cars, more expensive food and everything, nicer clothes. All those things, maybe are open to you or not, but it's not going to make you happy. Guaranteed. And we've been figuring that out for like thousands of years, humanity. And all you have to do is look at celebrities. I've talked about this before. Fatherhood, he has I'm just going to run through them, a bunch of advice. He says, be present, discipline them, discipline them. You're not really their friend. You're their father. So discipline them. Pray with them. I thought that was great. Read with them. Their ability to read is going to help them in their journey later on, their whole life. Take them to work, take them outside, take them to church. I thought those were all great, all amazing. And do it with them. Don't just send them off, do it with them. And love their mother visibly. And he talks about how the way the father treats the mom is going to be the way usually that the sons treat women. So love her. And obviously you should just love her because you love her, you know? All right, we're almost there. We got one more page. One more page. How long have we been going? Yeah, it's a longer episode. So stick with me, people. We're almost there. He talks about so we're leaving the fatherhood, we're leaving the family formation. We're going to geographic strategy, he calls it. This is a huge thing that I fell for when I was younger. He says, do not flee to the countryside. If you want to be elite human capital, fleeing to the countryside, first of all, it's very impractical. Most people flee to the countryside. They're just massively in debt. They're stuck. They have no community. It's just a bad move. But also, like, the cities are where it's at. It has the community, the amenities, the politics, the ability to make a difference, your friends. That's the way to go. I fell for it. I fell for it so hard. So you want to be in the cities. You want to be in the suburbs. That's where it's at, which is just, I think it's like a psyop. It must be like a Catholic psyop. I'm a little frustrated myself for falling for that. I know people that have done this and they're just massively in debt and they're like always longing to like go into the city. So it is what it is. I got out of it. You can get out of it too. He says there is a red state advantage. And actually, Timothy Gordon talks about this for Catholics. I think this is really smart. The red states are just going to be, you know, less taxes, more economic opportunities, you know, in terms of economic freedom, more solid on the social issues. But he says if you can stay in a blue states are going to be huge cosmopolitan hubs. And you can really make a difference here. But this is only if you have the capability, the means. It's not going to consume you, your wife, and your kids and like destroy you. So you got to really think about that. And these are going to be things like places like LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, maybe even like Miami and stuff now. Just these big hubs that are like centers of commerce, but are just really icky in terms of morals, in terms of economic freedom. So yeah, there is a real red state advantage. I would add just, I am so annoyed every time I pay taxes because my state, Arizona, we have abortion as a fundamental human right. And I don't know if it's still, but I believe we're still funding with our tax dollars, we're funding abortion, which is just so evil, so frustrating. So that is another red state advantage. Even though Arizona is like, we're kind of like blending into a blue, but historically we've been a red state. Anyway, that's for another time. Yeah, so that's geographic strategy. And then he talks about, this is the end of his speech, and then he has a checklist that I won't share unless you ask me. But he says the general disciplines. He says, go to church. Awesome. That's the first thing he says. Yes. Grow in faith because this life is going to end. So if you don't get that right, all of this elite human capital stuff is pointless. And I hope I'm making that clear. I don't want you to forget about that and do all this stuff. I want you to remember that. Be elite human capital, love Jesus Christ, and go to war for his kingdom. Go to war for souls. That's what the goal is. So that's one. Two is don't be fat. I agree. You shouldn't be fat. Nick Fuentes says stop eating. I think you just eat healthy food. Get your saturated fat up. Get your polyunsaturated down. Doesn't have to be too crazy. I was really telling my ex-girlfriend, I was like, just eat a bunch of high saturated fat ice cream for your dessert every day. It'll literally make you lose weight. It's not hard. But don't be fat. This is for the men. For the women, don't be fat either, but they're not going to want to hear that. Sleep 8 hours. Yeah, fair enough. Lift heavy 3 times per week. Fair enough. I think you should try to look your best for your wife and just for being a part of civilization. And he says, fix your hairline. This is the one that struck me the most. Because like, as you can see, my hairline is not, it's going away. I got the things on the corners and then I got the bald spot on the back. I'm going to try to fight it for a little bit. And it's been coming back a little bit, but like not at a great rate. So he recommends either, getting on minoxidil, finasteride. I might try minoxidil. I'm not going to do finasteride because the side effects is not even worth it. And there's some natural ways people argue about the effectiveness. There is a little bit of effectiveness I've seen, but not as much as I need. Also, I'm not super consistent with it, which is probably a problem. But he says either you got to fix it with those chemicals, basically, or you got to shave it. So I'm getting to the point where I might shave it soon. We'll see. It's just really funny. That was like one of the specific points, the concluding point. And I was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. But yeah, so those are the general disciplines. And then that is it. That is Elite Human Capital. Awesome stuff, honestly. And this dude, I don't know how long it took him, but he just put it out for free. He made it with AI, and that's a testament to his own advice. You need to master AI. I just wrote a screenplay in like 2 weeks with AI's help. It was incredible. So yeah, mastering AI is going to be great. I don't think I'll be talking about AI that much. I know there's a lot of problems. I haven't read Pope Leo's thing. I read the summary. It didn't seem like anything too drastic, but AI is useful. I don't want to overstate it, but I don't want to understate it. But that's what I got for you today. This is a longer episode, but God bless you. God keep you. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about the show, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.